John Perkins, a weary traveler who arrives in New York City late at night. John is exhausted and desperately needs a place to rest, but he faces a series of comical misadventures as he tries to find a bed for the night. John's first attempt is at a hotel called the Carlton. He approaches the night clerk, a man with a bushy mustache, and says, "Excuse me, sir, I need a room for the night." The night clerk eyes him suspiciously and asks,
"Have you got any luggage?"
John sheepishly admits, "No, I'm traveling light. Just need a bed to sleep in." The night clerk shakes his head and replies,
"Sorry, sir, we don't rent rooms without luggage. It's against our policy."
Disappointed, John leaves the Carlton and wanders the streets of New York City, feeling more and more tired with each passing minute. He tries another hotel, the St. James, and encounters a snooty receptionist in a fancy suit. John pleads, "I promise I'll be a quiet guest. Can you please give me a room?" The receptionist looks down his nose at John and says,
"Sir, our rooms are reserved for esteemed guests. We don't accommodate weary wanderers off the street."
Dejected, John trudges on, searching for a place to rest his head. He tries several more hotels, but each time, he's turned away for one reason or another. As the night grows darker, John's desperation deepens. He finally reaches the last lodging house on his list, the Riverview. The sign outside boasts rooms for all in big letters, and John thinks he might have a chance here. Inside, he meets a plump, middle-aged woman who appears to be in charge. He says to her, "I hope you can help me. I've been turned away from every hotel in the city, and I'm exhausted." The woman smiles kindly and replies,
"Don't you worry, dear. We have a room for you. Just sign the register and pay the fee."
Relieved, John signs the register and hands over his money. The woman leads him up a creaky staircase to a small, shabby room with a lumpy bed. John doesn't mind the modest accommodations. He's just grateful for a place to sleep. He lays down on the bed and closes his eyes, ready to drift off into slumber. But just as he's about to fall asleep, he hears a loud argument coming from the room next door. Two men are shouting at each other, their voices filled with anger and frustration. John can't make out the words, but the argument continues for what feels like hours. Frustrated and unable to sleep, John decides to go downstairs and ask the landlady if she can do something about the noisy neighbors. He approaches her and says, "I hate to bother you, but the people next door are having a heated argument, and I can't sleep." The landlady sighs and replies,
"Oh, those two. They're always at each other's throats. I'll talk to them, but I can't promise anything."
She goes to the room next door and knocks on the door. The argument subsides briefly, but as soon as she leaves, it starts up again. John realizes he won't get any sleep in this noisy place. Disheartened, he goes back to his room, gathers his few belongings, and heads back out into the cold New York night. As he walks the streets, John comes across a young boy named Mickey, who looks no older than 10. Mickey is sitting on a stoop, shivering in the cold. John can't bear to see the boy in such a condition, so he approaches him and says, "Hey, kid, it's too cold to be out here. Do you have a place to stay?" Mickey looks up at John with grateful eyes and shakes his head.
No, mister, I don't. I've been sleeping on the streets for days.
John's heart goes out to the boy, and he decides to help him find a warm place to sleep. Together, they set off on a new adventure, with John determined to ensure that Mickey has a safe and comfortable place to rest for the night. And so, as the two unlikely companions navigate the bustling streets of New York City, they form a bond that transcends their circumstances. John may not have found a bed for himself that night, but he found something even more valuable, a chance to make a difference in the life of a young boy in need.